The backstage area of The View hummed with its usual pre-show energy. Coffee cups cluttered makeup tables, producers scurried between monitors, and the familiar scent of hairspray hung in the air like invisible armor. Mark Ruffalo sat in the green room's corner chair, reading over his notes one final time. His documentary on environmental justice was set to premiere next month, and today's appearance was supposed to be a straightforward promotional segment. Simple, clean, purposeful. Cameron Lee, the segment producer, burst through the door with the frantic energy of someone perpetually behind schedule. His shirt was already wrinkled at 9 a.m., and his coffee-stained clipboard never left his grip. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Mark, hey, sorry to keep you waiting. Cameron's smile was practiced but strained. So just a heads up, Joy might get a little spicy today. You know how she is with the political stuff. The audience loves it when things get, well, exciting. Mark looked up from his notes, eyebrows furrowing slightly. Exciting how? Oh, you know. Cameron waved dismissively. Challenging questions. Good debate. Nothing you can't handle. Just remember, passion plays well on camera. Don't be afraid to show some fire. Through the green room's glass partition, Mark could see Joy Behar pacing near the set, gesturing animatedly as she spoke to a production assistant. Her voice carried just enough for him to catch fragments. Celebrity sermon, and tired of the preaching. Mark's phone buzzed. A text from Ana Castillo, the 17-year-old climate activist he'd met at a youth environmental summit in Newark last month. Watching today. Thank you for using your voice for those of us who don't have platforms yet. You're the reason I started speaking up at school. Don't let them silence the truth. He smiled, tucking the phone away. This was why he did it. Not for the cameras or the applause, but for kids like Anna, who saw beyond the celebrity and connected with the message. Cameron was still talking, his words blending into background noise. Ratings have been incredible when we get these kinds of exchanges. Controversy drives engagement. Mark's attention drifted to the monitor showing the live feed from the studio. The audience was settling in, a sea of expectant faces. Some held signs supporting climate action. Others looked skeptical, arms crossed. All of them hungry for something. Truth, entertainment, or simply the raw human drama that unfolded when passionate people disagreed in public. You ready? Cameron asked, checking his watch. We go live in 3 minutes. Mark stood, straightening his blazer. The documentary footage he'd spent months editing flashed through his mind. Melting glaciers, displaced families, young voices crying out for change. Anna's face appeared in his thoughts, along with thousands of other young activists who believed he could make a difference simply by showing up. Yeah, he said quietly, I'm ready. But as the red light above the studio door began to glow, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that Cameron's definition of ready and his own were about to collide in ways neither of them expected. The View theme music swelled as Mark walked onto the familiar set, waving to the enthusiastic audience. The studio lights felt warmer than usual, or maybe that was just his nerves. Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes greeted him with genuine smiles, their energy infectious and welcoming. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Ruffalo, Sunny announced, her voice bright with enthusiasm. Actor, activist, and now documentary filmmaker with his powerful new film about environmental justice. The applause was thunderous. Mark settled into his chair, glancing briefly at Joy Behar, who offered a tight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She was shuffling through note cards with the focused intensity of a prosecutor preparing for cross-examination. Mark, congratulations on the documentary. Sarah began warmly. Tell us what drove you to tackle this subject. What did you discover that surprised you most? Mark leaned forward, his passion immediately evident. Thank you, Sarah. What surprised me wasn't the scale of the crisis. We know it's massive. It was the voices we don't hear. Indigenous communities who've been sounding the alarm for decades. Kids like the teenagers I met in Newark who are organizing their schools because adults haven't acted fast enough. The audience murmured approvingly. Sunny nodded thoughtfully. Speaking of young voices, we know you work closely with youth activists. Hold on. Joy interjected, her voice cutting through the collegial atmosphere like a blade. Before we get into the feel-good stuff, can we talk about the elephant in the room? The studio fell quiet. Mark's smile faltered slightly. I'm sorry? Joy leaned back in her chair, a knowing smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. The hypocrisy, Mark. You're sitting here talking about environmental justice while flying private jets to climate summits. You live in multiple homes, you work in an industry that burns through resources like there's no tomorrow. She paused for effect. Aren't you just another celebrity using fear to stay relevant? The audience shifted uncomfortably. Sarah shot Joy a warning look, but Joy was just getting started. Mark's jaw tightened, but his voice remained measured. Joy, I think that's a fair question, and it's one I ask myself constantly. I'm not perfect. That's an understatement. Joy interrupted with a laugh that sounded more like a bark. Look, I get it. Climate change sells, especially when you can position yourself as the moral authority. But let's be honest about what this really is. And what is that exactly? Mark's voice had an edge now, his famous composure beginning to crack. Joy leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. It's performance activism. You get to feel good about yourself while continuing to live exactly how you want. The working-class families watching this show, they're worried about paying their heating bills, not saving the polar bears. Sunny tried to intervene. Joy, I think we should let Mark. No, it's okay, Mark said, his voice rising slightly. Let's talk about working-class families. Let's talk about the communities in Louisiana who can't drink their water because of oil refineries. Let's talk about the farm workers in California dealing with unprecedented droughts while corporations waste millions of gallons. Joy rolled her eyes. There it is, the speech. The righteous indignation. You know what I see? Another Hollywood elitist lecturing the rest of us from his ivory tower. The tension in the room was palpable now. Camera operators zoomed in on Mark's face, capturing every micro-expression. In the control room, Cameron was practically salivating. This was exactly the kind of explosive content that would go viral within minutes. Mark's hands gripped the arms of his chair. You want to know what I see, Joy? I see someone more interested in scoring points than having a real conversation about the future we're leaving our children. Joy's eyes flashed with something between amusement and contempt. Oh, here we go with the children. That's the nuclear option, isn't it? When you can't defend your position, just think of the children. The audience was dead silent now, sensing they were witnessing something beyond typical daytime television drama. Sarah and Sunny exchanged worried glances, both leaning forward as if preparing to physically intervene. Mark's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. My position doesn't need defending, Joy. The science speaks for itself. What I can't defend is sitting here while you turn a climate crisis into a comedy routine. Comedy routine? Joy laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mark, this is called journalism. This is called asking hard questions instead of just nodding along with whatever cause Celebrate Hollywood decides to champion this week. Something snapped. Mark's face flushed red, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the full weight of years of frustration with media cynicism and willful ignorance. You know what, Joy? You're absolutely right. This is a joke. But the punchline isn't my activism. It's that we're sitting here arguing about my carbon footprint while the planet burns. It's that you'd rather attack the messenger than engage with the message because that's easier. It's that there are 17-year-old kids organizing climate strikes because adults like us are too busy performing for cameras to actually do anything meaningful. Joy smirked, mistaking his passion for weakness. So you're just going to rant now? Is this how you handle criticism? Mark stared at her for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with controlled breathing. The studio was so quiet that the hum of the overhead lights became audible. Then, slowly and deliberately, he reached up and unclipped his microphone. No, Joy. This is how I handle people who confuse cynicism with intelligence. He stood, dropping the mic onto his chair. The small thud echoed through the stunned studio like a gunshot. Mark. Sunny started, half rising from her seat. But Mark was already walking toward the exit, his footsteps measured and purposeful. The cameras followed him, capturing every step of his departure. Joy sat frozen, her mouth slightly open, finally realizing that her combative style had just backfired spectacularly on live television. As Mark reached the studio door, he paused and turned back to face the panel. For what it's worth, I came here to talk about solutions. But apparently, that doesn't make good television. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The studio remained silent for another beat before Cameron's voice crackled through the earpieces. "And we're going to commercial." But it was too late. The moment was already racing across the internet at the speed of outrage. Within 17 minutes, the clip was everywhere. Twitter exploded first. @ClimateWatch posted the video with the caption, "Watch. @Mark Ruffalo walks off at The View after Joy Behar attacks his environmental activism." This is what integrity looks like. It had 50,000 retweets in the first hour. Then came the opposing narrative. @Conservative Voice fired back. Hollywood snowflake @Mark Ruffalo can't handle basic questions about his hypocrisy. Runs away like a child when challenged. Pathetic. TikTok creators were faster. Within 20 minutes, 17 different versions appeared, some with dramatic music, others with commentary tracks, a few reimagined as memes. The hashtag #RuffaloWalkoff began trending alongside #TheViewMeltdown and #ClimateHypocrite. Mark sat in a small cafe 6 blocks from the ABC studios, hood pulled up, watching his life become a commodity in real time. His phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from his publicist, missed calls from his agent, notifications from every social platform he'd ever joined. He turned it face down and ordered another coffee. "Excuse me," said a voice behind him. "Aren't you?" "No," Mark said without turning around. But the damage was done. Someone had spotted him. Within minutes, photos appeared online. Mark Ruffalo hiding in NYC cafe after meltdown. The paparazzi would arrive soon. Back at the View studios, Cameron was experiencing his own version of hell. His phone hadn't stopped ringing since they went to commercial. Entertainment Tonight wanted an exclusive. CNN was calling for comment. Fox News was already running chyrons. Hollywood elitist storms off set. "This is incredible," Cameron said to his assistant, watching the social media metrics spike. "We're trending in 14 countries. The clip has 8 million views already." Joy sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. The makeup artist had left. The hairstylist was gone. For the first time in years, she was alone with the consequences of her words. Sunny knocked softly. "Joy, you okay?" "I'm fine," Joy called back, but her voice cracked slightly. "Just processing." On her phone, she scrolled through the reactions. Most were ugly. Angry comments about her tactics, her tone, her treatment of a guest. But one stood out, posted by Ana Castillo @ClimateTeen17. "He shouldn't have had to defend the truth alone. When adults attack someone for caring about our future, they're attacking all of us who look up to him." @Mark Ruffalo walked away because sometimes dignity matters more than the platform. "We see you, and we're still listening." The tweet had 200,000 likes and climbing. Joy set her phone down and closed her eyes. In all her years of television, she'd never had a guest walk off. She'd prided herself on asking tough questions, on not letting celebrities off easy. But something about Anna's words, the quiet disappointment of a 17-year-old, hit differently than the usual Twitter mob. Outside, news vans were already assembling. By evening, this would be on every cable news show, dissected by pundits who'd never met either of them. The moment would be frozen in time, reduced to clickbait and partisan talking points. But in the quiet of her dressing room, Joy wondered if maybe, just maybe, she'd confused being tough with being cruel. Mark had walked 12 blocks before he found refuge in Riverside Park. The morning had turned unexpectedly warm for early spring, and the Hudson River reflected patches of sunlight like scattered coins. He sat on a weathered bench, still wearing his blazer from the show, feeling overdressed and exposed. "Mr. Ruffalo?" The voice was young, tentative. Mark looked up to see a Latina teenager with intelligent eyes and a worn backpack covered in environmental stickers. He recognized her immediately from her Twitter photo. Ana Castillo," she said, extending her hand with a maturity that seemed beyond her 17 years. "I was in the audience today. I saw what happened." Mark gestured to the empty space beside him. "Please, sit. Though I should warn you, being seen with me right now might not be great for your reputation." Anna smiled as she settled onto the bench. My reputation can handle it." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching a jogger pass by with earbuds, oblivious to the small drama unfolding on the bench. "You know," Anna said finally, "my mom always told me that walking away takes more courage than staying and fighting sometimes." Mark let out a bitter laugh. "Does she?" "Because Twitter seems to think I'm a coward who can't handle criticism." "Twitter thinks a lot of things," Anna replied, "most of them wrong." She turned to face him directly. "Can I tell you something? The first time I heard you speak, it was at that youth summit in Newark last month. You said something that changed everything for me." "Yeah? What was that?" "You said, don't let anyone convince you that caring is weakness. And then you talked about your hometown, about watching the water turn colors when you were a kid." Anna's voice grew softer. "My grandmother's neighborhood in East Newark. The air smells like chemicals on bad days. The asthma rates are through the roof. When you talked about that, I realized I wasn't alone." Mark felt something loosen in his chest. "I remember you. You asked about corporate accountability. And you didn't give me some bullshit political answer. You told the truth. You said it was complicated, but that complexity wasn't an excuse for inaction." Anna pulled her knees up to her chest. "That's when I started organizing at my school. That's when I found my voice." Mark stared out at the river. "I'm not sure I found mine today. I lost my temper. Made it about me instead of the cause." "Did you?" Anna challenged gently. "Or did you show that even adults have limits? That there's a difference between engaging in good faith and being used for entertainment?" A man jogged past, did a double-take, and slowed. Mark tensed, but the man just nodded respectfully and continued on. "You know what I saw in there?" Anna continued. "I saw someone who cared so much it hurt. Joy Behar was performing. You were feeling. There's a difference." Mark turned to look at her, this remarkable young woman who somehow understood what he was struggling to articulate to himself. "We're having a climate action meeting this Saturday," Anna said. "Nothing fancy, just students and community members in a church basement in Newark. No cameras, no microphones. Just voices." She paused. "You should come, not as Mark Ruffalo the celebrity, but as someone who remembers why this matters." Mark smiled, genuinely, for the first time all day. "I'd like that." "Good," Anna said, standing up. "Because we need adults who haven't forgotten how to care." Quote, "The ABC conference room smelled like cold coffee and anxiety. Cameron sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by network executives whose expressions ranged from concerned to livid. The wall-mounted screens displayed real-time social media analytics, a kaleidoscope of metrics that told the story of a network in crisis management mode. 18 million views and climbing, reported Jessica Martinez, the head of digital content. "We're trending on every platform, but the sentiment is mixed." "Mixed is generous," muttered Greg Walsh, the network's VP of Public Relations. "We've got climate activists calling Joy a bully, conservatives saying we ambushed a liberal celebrity, and everyone in between questioning our editorial standards." Cameron's phone buzzed with another call from a major news outlet. He declined it. The 15th such call in 2 hours. "What's our play here? Do we issue a statement? Bring them both back for a follow-up?" "Absolutely not," Walsh said firmly. "The last thing we need is to extend this story. We ride it out, let it die down naturally." But Jessica was shaking her head, scrolling through her tablet. "I don't think this dies down. Look at this. Ana Castillo, that teenage activist? Her tweet has 500,000 likes. She's getting interview requests from CNN, MSNBC, even some international outlets. This story has legs." Down the hall, Joy sat in her office with the door closed. Sarah Haynes had knocked twice, but Joy wasn't ready for visitors. She'd rewatched the segment 3 times, each viewing more uncomfortable than the last. The moment when Mark's face changed, when her provocation had hit something raw and real, played on loop in her mind. Her phone showed 847 missed calls, but she ignored them all except one. Her longtime friend and former View co-host Meredith Vieira. "Joy? I saw the clip. You okay?" Joy's voice was smaller than usual. "I think I screwed up, Mer. Talk to me. You know how I am. I push, I poke. I try to get to the truth underneath the PR polish. But this time, Joy paused, searching for words. I think I confused getting a reaction with getting to the truth. What do you mean? He wasn't performing, Meredith. He was genuinely upset. And I kept pushing because I thought he was putting on an act. But he wasn't. He really cares about this stuff, and I made him feel like that was something to be ashamed of. There was a long pause on the other end. So what are you going to do about it? Meanwhile, Sarah was having her own conversation with Sonny in the green room they'd just vacated. We should have stepped in harder, Sarah said, pacing. The moment Joy started getting personal, we should have redirected. Sonny was more philosophical. You know Joy. Once she smells blood in the water, she doesn't stop. But Mark, I've never seen him lose it like that. He's usually so measured. That's what bothers me, Sarah replied. For him to walk off like that, Joy must have really hit a nerve. And not in a good way. Back in the conference room, Cameron was fielding yet another call when his assistant burst in. Cameron, we just got a call from Ana Castillo's team. She wants to come on the show. The room fell silent. Cameron looked up from his phone, intrigued despite himself. What's her angle? She says she wants to have the conversation that should have happened today. About climate action, not climate personality politics. Jessica looked up from her tablet, eyes bright. That could be perfect. Young, authentic voice. Turns the story from Celebrity Meltdown to Next Generation Speaks Up. Cameron leaned back in his chair, mind racing. Maybe there was a way to salvage this after all. Saturday morning in Newark arrived gray and drizzling. But the basement of St. Bartholomew's Community Church buzzed with an energy that had nothing to do with the weather. Mark arrived 20 minutes early, wearing jeans and a simple hoodie. No makeup, no handlers, no cameras. Just him and a travel mug of coffee, feeling more nervous than he had before any red carpet. Ana spotted him immediately and waved him over to a circle of folding chairs where about 30 teenagers and community members were gathering. The space was humble. Fluorescent lights, linoleum floors, the faint smell of coffee from a previous AA meeting, but the conversations were anything but small. Everyone, this is Mark, Ana said simply, as if introducing a neighbor rather than a Hollywood star. He's here to listen, and that's exactly what he did. For the first hour, Mark sat quietly as young voices shared stories that would never make headlines. Maria, 16, talked about her little brother's asthma attacks getting worse each summer. James, a college sophomore, described organizing his campus despite death threats. Keisha, barely 14, had started a composting program at her middle school and wanted to expand it citywide. No one asked Mark for autographs or selfies. These weren't fans. They were organizers who had work to do. The thing is, said David, a high school senior with calloused hands from his weekend job at a community garden, adults always ask us what we want them to do. But we're already doing it. We need them to stop getting in the way. Mark found himself nodding. When Ana finally turned to him and asked if he wanted to share, he felt unprepared in the best possible way. Honestly, he said, this week I forgot why I started speaking up. I got caught up in defending myself instead of defending the future. He gestured around the circle. Listening to all of you reminds me that this isn't about me at all. After the meeting, Mark helped stack chairs while Ana coordinated carpools for the next week's school board meeting. A 7-year-old boy named Miguel, whose grandmother had brought him along, shyly approached Mark with a hand-drawn sign that read, "Thanks for not giving up," in wobbly crayon letters. Mark knelt down to the boy's eye level. "Thank you for this. Can I keep it?" Miguel nodded solemnly and handed it over. As the group dispersed into the drizzling afternoon, Ana walked Mark to his car. "So? How do you feel?" Mark looked back at the church, then at the handmade sign in his hands. "Like I remember who I'm supposed to be." "Good," Ana said with a smile, "because I made that call to the view. We're going back. But this time, we're going together." Mark felt a familiar flutter of nerves, but this time it was different. This time, he wasn't going to defend himself. He was going to defend this, all of this. The work that mattered more than any television segment ever could. The call came Monday morning while Mark was still holding Miguel's sign, which he'd propped against his kitchen window, where he could see it while making coffee. "Mark, it's your publicist. ABC wants you back on The View. They're offering Anna a guest spot too. Apparently she reached out to them directly. Mark smiled, remembering Anna's quiet confidence. What are the terms? Full editorial control over the discussion topics. No ambush questions. Joy Behar specifically requested to open the segment with, and I quote, "Din, a proper conversation this time." 20 minutes later, Anna called him directly. "So you ready to try this again?" she asked. "With you there? Absolutely. But I need to know. Are you sure you want to step into that circus?" Anna's laugh was warm and fearless. "Mark, I've been giving presentations to hostile school boards since I was 15. I think I can handle daytime TV." The promotional campaign began immediately. The View's social media team crafted carefully worded teasers. Mark Ruffalo returns to The View this Thursday with special guest Anna Castillo, teenage climate activist, for an unscripted conversation about real solutions. Cameron paced his office, simultaneously excited and terrified. The network executives had given him one directive: no more viral meltdowns. But they also wanted ratings, and Mark's return was already generating massive anticipation online. Joy spent Tuesday evening in an unusual ritual, actually researching Anna's background instead of preparing attack lines. The teenager's resume was remarkable, organizing climate strikes across 3 school districts, testifying before the New Jersey State Assembly, founding a youth environmental justice group that had grown to over 2,000 members. More importantly, Joy read Anna's interview with Teen Vogue from last month. "I don't need adults to agree with me. I need them to listen to the science and act like our future matters. Some of the most powerful conversations I've had have been with people who disagree with me, as long as they're arguing in good faith." The phrase "good faith" stuck with Joy. She'd built her career on tough questions. But somewhere along the way, tough had become cruel, and questions had become attacks. Wednesday evening, Joy made an unexpected decision. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd gotten from the producer. "Anna, this is Joy Behar. I know this might sound strange, but I was wondering if we could talk before tomorrow's show. Just the 2 of us." Anna's response surprised her. "I'd like that, Ms. Behar. I think we probably have more in common than either of us realizes." As Thursday morning approached, 3 people prepared for what felt less like a television appearance and more like a chance to model a different kind of public discourse. One that might actually matter. The studio felt different this time. Maybe it was the soft morning light filtering through the windows. Or perhaps it was the way Joy sat straighter in her chair. But something had shifted in the days since Mark's dramatic exit. "Welcome back to The View," Joy began, her voice carrying a gravity that surprised even her co-hosts. Last week, this show was the site of a confrontation that went viral for all the wrong reasons. Today, I want to try something different. She turned directly to the camera. "A week ago, I attacked a guest character instead of engaging with his ideas. I confused being provocative with being productive. That wasn't journalism. That was just noise." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Today, I hope we can have the conversation we should have had then." Mark and Anna sat side by side, both appearing calmer than anyone expected. Anna wore a simple blue blazer and carried a folder of handwritten notes. Mark had chosen to return in the same outfit from the previous week, a quiet statement about consistency. "Mark," Joy continued, "I owe you an apology. Not for asking hard questions, that's my job, but for how I asked them. And for making the conversation about you instead of the crisis you came here to discuss." Mark nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Joy. And I owe you an apology, too. I came here last week carrying a lot of frustration, and I let that spill over in a way that didn't serve the cause I care about." Sarah leaned forward. "Anna, you weren't supposed to be here last week, but you witnessed all of this. What was your perspective?" Anna smiled, composed beyond her years. "Honestly, I saw 2 adults who cared deeply about important things struggle to find common ground. Mr. Ruffalo cares about environmental justice. Ms. Behar cares about accountability. Those aren't opposing values, they're complementary ones." Sunny raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Well," Anna said, consulting her notes, "real environmental action requires both passion and skepticism. We need people who sound the alarm, but we also need people who ask hard questions about solutions. The problem comes when we attack each other, instead of attacking the problem." Joy found herself genuinely curious. Tell us about the problem as you see it, Anna. Not the global statistics we all know, but what you see in your community. Anna's demeanor shifted, becoming more animated. In East Newark, where I live, we have the highest childhood asthma rates in the state. My neighbor's 6-year-old carries an inhaler to kindergarten. That's not normal, but we've normalized it because the families affected are mostly Latino and low income. Mark leaned forward. That's exactly what my documentary tries to illustrate. Environmental racism isn't a future threat. It's happening right now, in Anna's neighborhood, and thousands like it. But here's the thing, Anna continued. When adults like Mr. Ruffalo speak up about this, they get attacked for being celebrities. When young people like me speak up, we get patted on the head and told we're inspiring. Meanwhile, my neighbor's kids still can't breathe. Joy felt something click. So the real question isn't whether Mark Ruffalo flies private jets. It's whether we're willing to tackle the systems that put refineries next to elementary schools. Exactly, Anna said. And that requires both moral urgency and practical solutions. It requires celebrities using their platforms and journalists asking tough questions about policy, not personal purity. The studio fell quiet. Not the uncomfortable silence of conflict, but the thoughtful pause of people actually listening to each other. Mark smiled. You know, Anna, you just did something remarkable. You took our argument and turned it into a collaboration. That's what good faith looks like, Anna replied simply. It assumes we're all here because we want to solve problems, not score points. Joy looked around the table, then back at the camera. This, she said quietly, is what we came here to do. The studio audience rose in a standing ovation, but this time the applause felt different, less performative, more grateful. As the cameras stopped rolling and the crew began breaking down equipment, something remarkable happened. Nobody rushed to leave. Joy approached Anna first, extending her hand. You're going to change the world, you know that? Anna smiled. Not alone, that's the whole point. Mark stood nearby, watching the interaction with quiet satisfaction. Sunny and Sarah joined them, and for a few minutes, the 5 women and 1 man simply talked. No cameras, no microphones, just human beings who had found their way to understanding. You know what the best part of this was? Sarah said. I actually learned something. About environmental racism. About how to disagree without being disagreeable. About how to listen, Joy finished. That's what I learned. How to actually listen. As the group began to disperse, Mark pulled out his phone and called his sister Miriam in Wisconsin. Mir, it's me. Yeah. I went back on the show. How'd it go this time? Mark looked around the studio, watching Anna exchange contact information with Sunny, seeing Joy laugh genuinely for the first time all week. Better. Much better. Good, Miriam said in her practical way. You remember what Dad used to say about fighting? You don't win by knocking the other guy down, Mark recited. You win when you both walk away standing taller. That's right. So did you win? Mark smiled, watching Anna help a production assistant carry cables. Yeah, Mir. I think we all did. Later that evening, Anna posted a single photo on Instagram, the handmade sign from 7-year-old Miguel that now sat on Mark's kitchen windowsill. The caption read, Thanks for not giving up. Any of you. The work continues. The post received 2 million likes, but more importantly, it sparked thousands of comments from young people sharing their own organizing efforts, from adults offering to help local climate groups, from teachers wanting to bring environmental justice into their curricula. Joy, scrolling through the responses from her apartment that night, felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope that television could still matter for the right reasons. Mark fell asleep reading messages from climate activists around the world, but the one that meant the most was a simple text from Anna. Same time next Saturday? The church basement crew is planning something big. He typed back immediately. Wouldn't miss it. Because sometimes the most important conversations happen after the cameras stop rolling, in spaces where conviction whispers louder than any applause. Conviction is louder when it whispers. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.